This is so here a baby's had a bath and it's given to this it's a trans
The
something.
purchaser.
Yeah, please look at the reaction of the baby. I'm sorry.
Cold. Are you gonna pee on me?
Oh no, I put it back on her.
I know, but her daughter has as well.
Okay, so what you see here is contractual agreement that this baby will lose one of their biological parents and contractually be bound to another unrelated adult.
Hello and welcome back to Psychobabble, where we expose bad therapy and the liberal narratives that contribute to our poor mental health. I'm Hannah Spear. Today, I'm coming to you with a very contentious topic, a very inflamed topic. I'll be discussing surrogacy and same-sex marriage and adoption with Katy Faust. She is the president and founder of Them Before Us, which is a global movement championing children's rights. She's herself a mother of 4, the wife of a Navy chaplain, and she came into the public eye after having written about these topics anonymously as a blogger. She never intended to go public, but she was ousted and was forced into the public eye. And rather than retreat, she doubled down, appearing at the UN, testifying before international parliaments, and filing amicus briefs for the US Supreme Court, all with a consistent message. Adult choices must never come at the expense of children's rights. And today we're going to address what those rights are. You can read her books, Them Before Us, Why We Need a Global Children's Rights Movement, Pro-Child Politics, and Raising Conservative Kids in a Woke City. Her aim is to speak for those who can't speak for themselves. But before we dive into all of that, please like and subscribe. Think about becoming a Psychobabble insider so you can follow us over to the members exclusive section. Today's members exclusive will be about adoption and the consequences to adoptive children, how we might compensate for it. So with that, we'll dive in. Thank you so much for joining me, Katy. Welcome to Psychobabble.
It's a joy to be with you. Thanks, Hannah.
So I want to start by giving people a picture of what surrogacy looks like and some of the numbers. So I'll start by just saying I came to Switzerland 10 years ago, and Switzerland is the most conservative country in Europe. And I became a citizen, and here we have direct democracy. So we vote on everything. And the first vote I took a part in was the vote for same-sex marriage. And sadly, it came through. But I was speaking with my husband about this. You know, we get papers for every direct vote so we can really see what it's about. And I remember telling him, look, I have no problem with what people do in the privacy of their homes. But, you know, this is a vehicle, same-sex marriage, legalizing that is a vehicle for gay parents to become, to adopt, to become parents. Mm-hmm. And that I have a problem with. And I think that we are fed this picture of, you know, the poor women who are infertile, who can't have babies, and then surrogacy is a solution for them to have a family. And then I thought it was interesting to see that so I'll give you some numbers. Here in Switzerland, surrogacy is still illegal, but in the UK, since 2012, same-sex marriage became legal in 2013. They have surrogacy cycles have increased from 130 to 230 between 2012 and 2022. And in 2022, 61% of surrogacy cycles were used by other family types type, so mainly male same-sex couples. I thought that was very interesting. Globally, it's one in three intended parents using surrogacy are same-sex couples, and then in the U.S. the number is 40% of surrogacy arrangements involve gay male intended parents. So this really that thought I had, this is a vehicle for same-sex couples to become parents, that is really reflected in these numbers. And then I'll show you here a Guardian article that says gay couples, we are expected to be okay with not having children, how gay parenthood through surrogacy became a battleground. So those are the numbers we're looking at right now. And I want to ask you, yes, given this impression, do gay parents have the right to become parents?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I run a children's rights nonprofit. We advocate for children's fundamental natural rights. These are things that exist regardless of what a civil right or a civil law recognizes. These are things that are pre-political rights that government should be designed to protect. They don't grant it to you. So children have a right to life. Children also have a right to their mother and father. Adults do not have a right to violate children's right to life just because they want something. And adults do not have a right to make a family or become parents if it means children lose their right to their own mother and father. So one problem that we're having right now is there is a misunderstanding about what rights are. Interestingly, anything that an adult really, 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 really wants is framed as a right. But just because you want something does not make it a right. In our first book, Them Before Us, Why We Need a Global Children's Rights Movement, we outline kind of the criteria needed to actually qualify something as a natural right. And there's a lot of things that adults want that are not natural rights. But children do have fundamental natural rights. One of them is life. One of them is a right to their mother and father. Another one is the human right to be born free and not bought and sold. And what we see is all three of those fundamental child rights are at risk because of reproductive technologies such as IVF, sperm and egg donation, and especially surrogacy. This is a narrative, both gay marriage and surrogacy are peddled under very sympathetic storylines, right? Like you said, the infertile woman who can't have children on her own, and so her sister is going to carry the baby for her because she lost her uterus during her cancer treatment. Okay, that's kind of what we think about when we think about surrogacy. Gay marriage was passed really on the understanding that marriage had nothing to do with children. If marriage did have something to do with children, you really could not validate two men or two women getting married in the same way. But the reality is marriage has a lot to do with children, because in every place that gay marriage has been legalized, gay advocates have turned right around and said, now that we have marriage, give us children. We have 37 countries in the world that have legalized gay marriage. 0 of them have reinforced children's right to their mother and father in the wake of that decision or ruling or law. In fact, many of those countries have legally attenuated the connection between biological parents and child. For example, Canada, when they passed gay marriage, they immediately no longer recognized parents as biologically related. They simply deemed everybody as legal parents. So what that means is parenthood is determined by the state, not based on whether or not you give birth to the child. It is now a state-assigned designation. And so what you have is these two areas where we have a highly sympathetic narrative painted, both gay marriage and surrogacy. And what it's doing, both of those are redounding to the place where we are now buying and selling children and treating them as accessories to be assigned by government to whatever adults have the money and means to acquire them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true what you're saying. That's how I thought about surrogacy. I remember having a conversation with my mom when I was younger, and I, for some reason, got worried about what if I can't ever have a child, and oh, because you don't know. And she said, don't worry, you'll become a mother. We'll fix it if that happens. There's surrogacy. I can surrogate for you. And I remember thinking, okay, that calmed me. And we do have some precedents here in our scriptures. You can make an argument that Bila and Silpa were surrogates for for their tribe. They were given as gifts, and they had kids that they all tended to together. And we don't talk about who came from which mother. Really also have a dar, but there you had the child was always in the presence of that mother the rest of their lives. And so I think maybe we should separate those.
We should separate them. I'm a Christian, and I get a lot of pushback even within the Christian community, but mostly from critics who will say, oh, you're against surrogacy, then you're against the patriarchs, because some of the patriarchs practiced surrogacy, Jacob and his wives, Abraham and Sarai. And let me just tell you, that was adultery. That's not surrogacy. Or that's polygamy. That's not surrogacy. Let me tell you what surrogacy is right now, the kind of surrogacy that we're discussing. Surrogacy takes what should be one woman, mother, and splices her into 3 purchasable and optional women. The first one is the genetic mother. That's the woman that contributes her egg. The second one is the birth mother, the one that carries the child to term. And the third mother is the social mother, the one that raises the child every day, gives that distinct feminine presence, maximizes the child's development by investing in the child in a way that the paternal figure cannot. So in surrogacy right now, the modern surrogate market will allow children to lose all 3. You can purchase the child's genetic mother, rent the birth mother, and go home to a completely motherless family. Now, in scripture, with cases like Hagar, she was the genetic mother, the birth mother, and the social mother. Same thing with Jacob's wives. All of them had their own genetic mother, birth mother, and social mother in their life. Honestly, same thing with Mary, the mother of God, who's like, oh, she was a surrogate for God the Father. She was the genetic mother, the birth mother, and stayed with him as well. There is no surrogacy in the Bible. There's no surrogacy in the Bible. Not the way we're talking about it today.
Not the way that we have that what we're doing now. Yeah, I agree. And okay, so let's talk about the impact of surrogacy on children and same-sex marriage on children. I would like to show you and all of you a video, and I apologize if this is quite disturbing, but it is so what really disturbs me is that these videos are available on TikTok. It's so performative. So these are gay couples who film everything in the hospital, film them getting the baby after the baby's being brought. The mother is nowhere to be seen, obviously. And it's just videos and videos upon videos of them in the hospital. And it's very clearly not about the child at all.
Excited? Are you ready to meet your parents? Are you?
This is so here a baby's had a bath and it's given to this this it's a trans
Purchaser,
something.
the purchaser.
Yeah, I don't even know what to call, but what is interesting here is to please look at the reaction of the baby. I'm sorry if it's a little loud.
Oh, are you gonna pee on me?
Oh no, I put it back on her.
I know, but I thought I had it well.
Oh, he went right. Oh, right.
Oh, there she goes. Oh, yeah. She's so cool. She's mad.
Yeah. So what's interesting is the nurse in the first video brings the baby in and says, are you ready to meet your parents? Okay. So they are the parents by contract. One of them is probably the biological father, but the child has just lost one of her natural parents, his natural parents. And so for us to have this idea that 2 men of the same sex can become parents, the law has to accommodate what biology prohibits. Okay, so what you see here is contractual agreement that this baby will lose one of their biological parents and contractually be bound to another unrelated adult. First of all, that's a problem because any child that loses a relationship, that grows up apart from their own mother or father, we already know by studying adoptees, by studying other donor conceived children, that these kids are much more likely to experience identity struggles. It's very hard for kids to answer the question, who am I? If they can't answer the question, whose am I? What else do we know about this child? They will hunger for the love of a woman. It is something we call mother hunger. We know that children who grow up without a father, whether it's a single mother or same-sex mothers, that those children hunger for a father because developmentally, children they don't just need love in the abstract. They crave male love and female love. And very often we see predictable problems with children who grow up, for example, without a father. They will find a man to love them. Women are much more likely, young women, teens are much more likely to become teen mothers if they grow up without a dad because they are seeking that male love that they were starved of in their home. Boys who grew up without a father predictably are more likely to get involved in criminality because they are finding a man to love them. It's just somebody to be in their gang or somebody to run drugs for them. It is predictable that girls are much more likely to become teen parents. Boys are more likely to become involved in crime if they don't have a dad. They are seeking male love. So what are these two men doing? In both of these cases, they are starving children of the maternal love that kids are going to crave. What's happening in that second video? What you're seeing right there is the creation of a primal wound where the child has lost the only thing that they know. And when I argue about this online, showing a baby transferred to the hairy chest of a man that might be biologically related, maybe not, we have no idea. Big Fertility doesn't care. They don't share it with us. They don't track those kinds of numbers. What happens when that baby is transferred to the chest of that unrelated man? They have lost the only thing that they know. And people will say, the baby doesn't know any different. And I'm like, the baby only knows one thing. That baby knows one thing. They know the mother. They know the body in whom they have belonged for 9 months. It's the only thing that they know. Even if the baby is handed over to their two genetic parents, their biological mother and father, those two people at that moment are strangers among 8 billion. We have studied the impact of maternal deprivation, even temporary maternal separation in the first couple hours and days and weeks of a child's life. You can permanently alter the structure of the baby's brain through maternal separation. And so what you've got right there is an influencer who's perfectly manicured with long nails talking about, oh, is she going to pee on me? That's his concern. What he's looking like camera ready. And you can see that inconsolable baby. Whereas if you have ever been in a labor and delivery room, given birth to your own kids, or watched other videos of kids that are placed on the chest of their mother at birth, they are calmed.
Yeah. That's
It is
what that's what I thought when I looked at that second video, and I was very upset by it because I've had 3 kids, and I know when they have a bath they put on me, it doesn't take a lot for them to calm, and so that's what I found so upsetting because it just wouldn't calm. It was still so upset and angry, and the spouse of this man is in another room with another baby, with the twin.
And these guys have chronicled their surrogacy journey. The babies are now over 1 year old. They will occasionally show pictures of them at their birthday party or on a plane or giving them snacks. And it is so obvious that these kids have what we call an anemic attachment. They're not attached to anybody. They have this anxious, avoidant look. They don't laugh. They don't smile. That primal wound, that mother deprivation that began the day that the kids were born, have continued on through the first year of their life. These are not thriving children. And I am stunned that they keep videotaping their kids because it's so clear that the kids are suffering.
Yeah. And so, but they do, and I'll show you guys here if you're watching the video, you have study upon study claiming that kids with lesbian parents are just as healthy as other kids. You've got a meta-analysis saying we identified 79 scholarly studies that met our criteria for adding blah, blah, blah. 75 concluded that children of gay or lesbian parents fare no worse than other children.
Let's talk about
this
that.
is what we're told. Please, yes.
Yeah, let's talk about that. If you go to the Heritage Foundation, they did an analysis of those 79 studies. And the vast majority of those do not use randomly derived participants. They were recruited, right, through LGBT organizations. They volunteered. And anytime that you actually look at the studies that did not use recruited samples, they used random participants or data-based population outcomes. They don't show that children fare no different, because all of those studies that are like, there's no difference, they fare just as well, none of them use random samples. But when you look at the studies that did use random samples or adequate control groups or longitudinal, like long-term studies, none of those show that the kids are doing just fine. So you have to really short circuit the gold standard of the scientific method to reach the conclusion that kids can lose a biological parent, not have the maternal and paternal balance in the home, and suffer a traumatic loss of a mother and father and come out with no differences. So this is something that's just, honestly, it's a sociological miracle, because up until about 2005, scholars on the left and the right would say in unison, children thrive in the home of their married biological mother and father in a low conflict relationship. And then in 2005, suddenly all of these studies popped up that didn't use random participants, that didn't have adequate controls, that were not longitudinal or long-term. And all of a sudden, there's this new consensus that kids do not need the two things that sociologists have all agreed upon as lending itself to child thriving, which is a mother and father and a biological connection to both parents. So it's very, very clear that those conclusions are driven by bias and not real social science rigor.
Right. It's just ideological. I only found one study, Sullins from 2015. I don't know if you've seen it, where they did find that emotional problems among children with same-sex parents were 4 times as high. And that was, they used 207,000 children, 512 were same-sex. And that was the only one that I could find.
What Stalin did is he actually used government data. He just went and saw, what is it that the government is reporting? 207,000 in his sample size. That 517, did 12. You say? 512? Yeah, 512. That is close to more than all of the kids in the very poorly designed studies. It's just a testament that, like, when you get the methodologies right, the outcomes are drastically different. He's not the only one. Mark Regnerus did it in 2012. There's other population-based data studies that have been done as well. And it's logical that the kids so what do we know about children? We know that biological parents are more connected to, invested in, and protective of them. We know that mothers and fathers offer distinct and complementary benefits to children. We know that kids who lose a parent through death, divorce, abandonment, incarceration, all suffer negative outcomes. Those are well known. Whenever you're not studying same-sex parenting, everybody agrees on that. So then riddle me this. Why is it that in same-sex headed households where you're always losing a biological parent, you're always missing maternal or paternal love, you've always had the tragic loss of your mother or father, how is it that those kids are faring no different or even better? It's a sociological miracle, and it's simply a result of researcher bias.
Right. Well, they sort of say that they can compensate, that they can, because it's really about feminine and masculine traits. And that's what you then usually find in same-sex couples, where if you have lesbian mothers, then one has very masculine traits.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because heterosexual homes where the mother has remarried to a new man, stepfather, they are not able to rise to a level of parity of a child's own married biological mother and father. They're just missing the biological piece. They're not missing the masculine feminine piece. And yet children who are raised by their mother and her new husband fare about as well as children raised by a lone mother, which is not as well. So now you want me to believe that lesbian households where one is pretending to take a masculine role, or gay households where one's pretending to take a feminine role, that they're going to outperform the step families? I mean, again, like, you are asking us to disbelieve everything that we know about family structure, which we've been studying pretty diligently for about 5 decades here. So the truth is that ideology is driving those conclusions, not statistical reality, not biology, not common sense, and not the overwhelming mountains of sociological data that we have on the family.
Mhm. And you have, what do people tell you? Because when I looked into it, well, you just have a lot of people online saying like how wonderful it is, and my gay dad's this, and my lesbian mom's that, and that's the picture you're easily getting. What do
Well,
people
you can
tell your organization?
come to thembeforeus.com. We've got the stories of kids with LGBT parents or same-sex headed households who really struggled because of it. I will often encourage them to write under a pseudonym, because these kids are still trying to maintain a relationship with the two people, or maybe right now it's very often there's only one parent they're connected to, because the unrelated adult has not been as faithful, connected to, or invested in their life as we have historically understood parents to be. And so, like, we do have the stories on my website. We have a whole bank of stories, because I feel like it's important for people to read the real outcomes to kids. Now, it is high cost for kids to talk about their struggles or their sadness of losing their mother or father and being raised in a same-sex headed household. To be honest, it's hard for divorced kids to do that too. I've got an entire category of children of divorce sharing their studies. To be honest, it's true when kids have a parent that abandons them as well. Like, all of these areas where children have to shoulder a load because adult desire is prioritized above their fundamental right to be known and loved by their mother and father, many of those kids simply have a muzzle on them. They are trying to keep their parents happy. They are trying to please the new stepfather or the stepmother that has been in their life for 20 years, but is still so sensitive if they ever talk about their mother in her presence. I mean, like, these kids have to do such a dance. And so I hope that our website is a place where they can be honest. But it is very high cost for kids to speak out, especially to do so publicly. The ones that love having two mothers or two fathers, they are going to get all different kinds of accolades, front page news articles splashed up across mainstream media. The ones that say, it actually was really painful to grow up without a father, and it's really challenging that I have 52 half siblings because my father was a serial sperm donor. Those kids don't get invited back to Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah. And those are the themes of their pain that people write to you guys about.
Yeah, that's
Whose
right.
am I?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So you're arguing for policy changes. I mean, you've been in this game for quite a while. What does that what does that landscape look like now?
We are arguing for policy changes, but we're also arguing for personal reformation as well. That if we're going to protect kids, which we must, that means we have to reorder our personal lives, and we have to be willing to be courageous in the public sphere. Children's right to their mother and father is the thing that protects them individually, but also has the potential to save the nation. Every nation, every major Western country is suffering from an epidemic of family breakdown, and children are struggling because of it. Their physical health, mental health, academic health, relational health, emotional health, it is all implicated. It is all damaged when they are not raised by their own mother and father in a stable, long-term marriage. If they have to split homes between a mother and father, we see outcomes decline. We actually see an impact at the chromosomal level. Children who are separated from their father through death, incarceration, or divorce have shorter telomeres, the end caps of their chromosomes. It shortens their lifespan. It impacts their health for life. And so if we want our society to thrive, we have to protect individual children. What does that include? That means we ourselves must orient our lives around children so their right to their mother and father is protected. That means that our self-interest is going to have to step aside so children have what they need. And that's probably the biggest challenge that we have. because when I go out and I talk about same-sex headed households and how that damages kids, you get a lot of people, especially on the right or in religious circles, that are like, yeah, I told you. But then I say, but also you should not shack up, because kids with cohabiting parents are 3 times as likely to drop out of school, 4 times more likely to be abused, much more likely to use substances. And if you're in a struggling marriage that doesn't have to do with, physical abuse, you need to stay in that for the kids. And like, you need to work it out, because otherwise you're forcing your kids to shoulder a load that they should not have to bear. Or if you are single or suffering with infertility, you cannot go down to you can't open the sperm or egg donor catalog and pick a child out because your biological clock is ticking or you desperately want a child. You cannot force a child to sacrifice their fundamental rights so you can have what you want, even if it's God-given or legitimate. So the first big obstacle to my message is simply it interferes with adult self-interest. Everybody's single, married, gay, straight, fertile, and infertile. Everybody has to sacrifice if we're going to protect kids. But also when it comes to policy, conversations about the definition of marriage, about divorce, about IVF, reproductive technologies, modern families, surrogacy, and adoption, all of those conversations must begin with, what about the child? The child should be the primary figure around which we shape policy. And that is not the case in any of those conversations right now.
No, you're right. Do you think, because we're misled by it being called donating, and do you think there would be a change if we put it, if we sort of say, because you're not allowed to donate a kid, you're not allowed to buy a kid, you're not allowed to buy blood.
Right.
If we took it away from the free market, I mean, I can't imagine that these women who go through the surrogacy would do so willingly if they knew it was going to a same-sex couple.
Many of them will.
Very ideologically possessed.
Many of them will do it for a same-sex couple. Very few of them will do it for a same-sex couple for free. So you're exactly right that we need to stop saying donor. We even need to stop saying altruistic when it comes to surrogacy. This is not a benevolent nonprofit. Nobody is donating their eggs or donating their sperm. Everybody is selling their eggs and selling their sperm. Everyone is renting their wombs. And if you say, well, there's some people that do it for free. Well, we have altruistic surrogacy in Canada, in the UK. Women will get paid tens of thousands of dollars in like reimbursement costs. So yes, she is getting paid. Maybe not getting paid as much as a Californian surrogate, but she's getting paid. We have push for commercial surrogacy in states like New York, which has had altruistic surrogacy for decades, but not enough women were willing to do it for free. That should tell you something. That we need commercial surrogacy because women do it for the money should tell you everything that you need to know, that this is not donation. This is the buying and selling of children.
That was it for the free episode of Psychobabble. I hope you enjoyed it. I also hope you consider upgrading your membership and coming over to the members exclusive with us. It's full access, juicier, more personal, and a lot more fun. So join us over there. If not, have a very nice day, and I'll see you Wednesday in 2 weeks.
Human children always want to know the answer of who is my mother, who is my father, and adopted children and surrogate children. Adopted children ask the question, why did she abandon me? Why did she relinquish me? Surrogate children are going to have to answer the question, why did she sell me?